Alright, what's up guys, Azura here, and today we're here for our monthly end of month tier list. This time featuring results from the CS that ended literally like last night. And so I will take those results into account. But as you can see here, I didn't even bother making a new template because this month on JP was just Fighters Collection, and honestly speaking, I don't think Fighters Collection did a single thing to the meta. I think the most impactful thing is that it gave Gears a really good stride, but Gears aren't exactly a top tier threat by any means, even with the new stride in question being Chronos Command Revolution. So I figured instead of remaking and redoing the entire tier, I would just move stuff around here instead, depending on how my thoughts have changed for this month. So without further ado, let's get on and move stuff around, I guess, this time around. So this was last month's tier list. This was my thoughts on the meta last month. So I think my first changes for me is I think Night Rose and Hari both belong down here now. You don't see these decks at all whatsoever, like pretty much ever. You might see like a random like Night Rose or Hari ladder every once in a while. You don't really see much in the tournaments either. There was that one guy who brought Hari to CS, and lo and behold, the man lost round 1. So just goes. Actually, I think he lost round. If not, he lost round 2. So didn't make it too far. So just goes to show how good Hari is. Night Rose has no representation at all. Night Rose is a little bit too slow. I think Hari is a better deck than Night Rose right now, just because Night Rose can't do much of anything until second stride. So a little bit too slow there. So I think both these decks belong down here. Just no representation, and just kind of too slow for the current meta. Angels too. Angels definitely more of a this deck just doesn't exist kind of thing. I think this deck is actually not that bad. I think this deck definitely can stay up here, but again, like 0 rep, you don't even see this deck on ladder. So I will just pump this down just because, again, you don't see it very often. In theory, it is like okay, but yeah, it's honestly after looking at it, it's probably not as good as these decks. So yeah, so we will move Angel Feather down, we'll move Gav down 1 tier as well. And then decks that did show up at CS that have that improve my opinion. So I think Fenrir probably does deserve to go up here. Fenrir is one of those really degenerate OTK decks where like you give if you don't give that deck too many CB, they'll just like punt your face in, just die. So just because of that, I think Fenrir goes up here. I think Fenrir is one of those decks where if you know the matchup and you play correctly, this deck is not too scary. But it is definitely one of those decks where if you don't know what you're doing against this deck, you will just get your face rolled in, you'll just die to it. But I think for the most part, most good players at this point probably know how to play against this deck. If you don't know what to do against this deck, for the most part, you either just try to kill them kill them really fast if you're something like Alt Mal, because this deck just doesn't have this deck does not play heal guards, so there's a very limited amount of cards they can draw into. They can also soul charge out the guards, all that. Or you super slow roll them, where on first try you give them like a max of 2 damage, and then if they burn through their CB after that, you give them like 1 damage a turn. And because of how this deck works, you need a Fenrir to draw that's 1 CB every time you do it, and then you need the grade 2 for a CB. So if you just do it like that, if the Fenrir player wastes all their CB too early, they will not get enough CB to do anything past like their first combo turn. So yeah, that's the deal with Fenrir. So Fenrir is an okay deck, has a just dumb OTK deck that probably shouldn't exist, but it does. And yeah, it also falls victim of Soul Charge RNG. Sometimes you just draw your Taros, and you damage all your Taros. You just don't draw your pieces. You don't get your Taros in a soul. All that, a bunch of RNG involved in this deck. So because of that, I think this deck had a showing, so I will move it up just because this deck probably is better than all this stuff, because they can just randomly high roll you to death. But yeah, has a bunch of RNG elements to it. If this deck was like hyper consistent, this deck would probably belong like hyper consistent, not overly CB reliant. This deck will just roll you over. So, but because it's not, it does belong here at best, in my opinion. And then I think the most random out of nowhere pick from the CS, the guy that got second had Chaos in his lineup, so I guess I'll move it up here just because of that. In theory, Chaos in a pick 3 ban 1 format is actually pretty good, because the only deck that I'd say Chaos loses really hard to is Neonectar. And if you just ban Neonectar, this deck plays relatively well into everything else. I think it plays going first against Alt Mal, you still get your face ran in, but if you win die roll against Alt Mal, the matchup is very doable. Luard doesn't enjoy getting its back row locked at all either. So front row or back row, obviously front row, no one decks don't want the front row getting locked, but Luard doesn't even enjoy its back row getting locked, so that's pretty annoying for that deck. I think Kagero is a really 50-50 toss up. Prisms can bounce everything back to avoid getting their front row locked, but even locking their back row turns off a lot of their scaling and what they can do with that, so it's pretty annoying there. So in theory, Chaos actually does have a pretty good matchup spread overall. In a pick 3 ban format, you just ban Unectar, you're one horrendous matchup, and in theory it probably does okay in that, but overall I think even against the matchups where you're like supposedly like favored in, just because of like how slow this deck is, I think just because of that, it's not that good. You're still lacking a good first stride. Judgment Messiah is just not it for the first stride. Like it services well enough, I guess, but yeah, not having a actual good first stride really sucks for Chaos, and because of that, it makes it really slow. The only way to lock before your second stride is either you go first and use Chaos skill, which is super heavy on cost, or you draw your photons. So yeah, so deck that theoretically does really well into the meta, but when it actually plays out, because of all the stuff it's lacking as a deck, I think that is what's holding it back from going any higher. That being said, if this deck gets any amount of support, which it will eventually, that's what's really good. This deck will become really good, because that lock at the end of the day is still a really degenerate mechanic. But for now, I think it is A tier at best, literally because of one guy bringing it. If that guy didn't bring it, I don't think I'd put this deck up any higher, but results are results, I guess. I think, I honestly don't think this deck is a whole lot better than the decks down here, but results are results, so I will put it up here, I guess. Because the deck did get banned, so clearly, the one time I was on stream where the guy got to play it, he won. Because the other guy was really bad alt mile and could not figure out the matchup on the spot. And every other time he was playing on stream, he got banned, so clearly there was something good about this deck if someone's gonna ban it. So yeah, so there's that. I think all these other decks belong down here. Messiahs did get Transalps. It is nice that it can deal with resist, but Messiah as a whole is lacking so many tools. It just feels very bad to play right now, and because of that, even with the new stride that supposedly makes it pretty good, I think Transalps is a pretty good card. Just the issue is the rest of that kind of really sucks, and because of that, Messiah will stay down here, unfortunately. And like I said earlier, I said Gears got Chronos Cannon Revolution. Very good stride. I think that card is very good for the deck. I think it is the singular card that's keeping the deck afloat and keeps it this high up. Obviously, I think the rest of the deck's pretty good too. I think the entire ZTB engine is really good, but I think Chronos Command Revolution as a card gives the deck a super easy out to Jingle Thuria, because as long as you first stride, you go Pegasus, you flip the Chronos Command. Second stride after that, if they set Jingle Thuria, Chronos Command, everything disappears. So because of that, I think Gears have that singular niche that makes it really good. Deals with Luard too. They set up a bunch of back row. Even if they damage deny you, you just need one face up damage and the Chronos Command face up. And if you have that, then you can clear the back row, and they'll be a little bit annoyed. I wouldn't say it's game winning, but they'll be quite annoyed by losing their entire back row. So yeah, Gears have a pretty good overall, have a very strong niche against specifically Jingle Thuria. You can deal with golds too, I guess. Go golds since they have a bunch of back row intercepts as well. So yeah, Gears a very strong niche, and so I think that's why I will still rate it. I don't think it moves position at all whatsoever here. So I do think Gears are a very solid A tier contender. I think gold I will move down a bit. After looking at the deck a little bit more, I think the deck just kind of isn't it. 3 intercepts is cool and all, but I think Gears just does that better now, straight up. Gears can call the Nepata, the grade 1 ZTB that has back intercept from the back row. They can call more back row intercepts. They can call them earlier as well as the fact that those intercepts work even on turn 3, so they can super slow down the aggression super early in the game. And I think Gears just have a better overall win con, and it doesn't deck out as easily. So just because I still think golds are really good, but after looking at it a bit and seeing how basically nobody brought CS again results, I do value results quite a bit. And so yeah, gold pretty low representation, and then after thinking about it a bit, it just doesn't do enough. So yeah, and then the final 2 decks, I think Kagero, I do want to demote down back to A tier. After, again, results, and then after playing with the deck a bit myself, because Kagero is still a deck that I enjoy playing every once in a while, and after talking with some people, my friends that also whose opinions I respect, Kagero just feels a little bit too fair. It just feels like it just doesn't do enough in the current meta, and because of that, I'll bump it down to A tier. Yeah, Kagero still does Kagero things, but Jingle Thuria is still a nightmare to deal with, even with the Pichan, the Crown that gets resist. Even with that, the matchup is still really bad, I think. It makes it very winnable. Before Pichan, I think that matchup was, if you went first, I felt that matchup felt so unwinnable. If you went second, it felt like you had to end the game by second stride, first-ish, second-ish stride. If the new player healed like once or twice, you just kind of felt you couldn't catch up anymore. So because of that, I think matchup is really bad. Altmile is also a pretty bad matchup, I think. Even obviously, if you go first, you're probably getting your face rolled in. Going second, again, much more winnable, but I still think that Altmile still probably wins that matchup, even if you go, even if they go first, even if Altmile goes first, because they'll still just ram your face in. Because if the Altmile player is smart and just puts like the anti-retire boosters at the side and keeps them on board the entire game, they can never get rid of all your boost. Or you can never get rid of all their boosters, so they can still have some way to push. And as long as they draw like a resemblance of some amount of guards of like not zero, they'll probably live your second try and kill you on their second stride. So I think Kagero just feels like it just doesn't do enough right now. It feels a little bit too fair, and that's why I'm moving down here. And the one deck that I think I will move up to S tier is Luard. This more specifically is how the JP players are playing it with the 0 damage variant of the deck now. Basically what they do, because with the heal guards and harmonics, they get to pain themselves, right? So they actually get CB to do things, but once they are at 3 damage, harmonics and the heal guards can no longer give you damage, right? So Luard will just choke you at 3, so you get 3 CB to play with. So decks that can CC and just loop their CCs over and over against, i.e. Prisms, or like even like Asha with the new Asha, they can like CC and still do their stuff. But with only 3 CB, it is still very awkward to work with, or 3 damage to work with, still very awkward to work with. And then Luard just hyper compresses to the deck to the point where your deck is like your crit stack, and then like 18k intercepts, so that your 18k intercepts and PGs that you're redrawing every single turn. And then the main stuff, you dig into those cards that dig you closer to your stack. And then the deck just rages you from 3 with Drag Driver. So if you don't draw all 4 PGs, you're basically on a clock, because once Luard gets to the hyper compressed deck state, for every 1 PG, that's 1 turn you have to kill them. If you don't draw enough of your PGs, Luard will just kill you from 3, and you're gonna be very sad. So with just how the deck is played, I think the deck is very powerful. We only got to see it on stream once, and even a deck that can supposedly deal with Luard, i.e. Prisms, because the late they can keep looping it to recycle their CB over and over again, to keep CCing. Even that deck folded to Luard, damage denying them at 3, and just ragey checking them. And I'm pretty sure correctly, the ragey player did, or the Prism player did draw like 3 PGs, so they definitely did have ample time to kill them. So just because of that, I think Luard is the way the deck is played is very powerful. I think your worst matchup is obviously still like Naru, and I think Kagero is still pretty bad. But against Kagero specifically, you can just tech stuff in like a Peeker to get anti-retire boosters you can tutor from the deck to keep back row and stuff, so you can still pay for costs and stuff and all that. So because of that, I think even your bad matchups you can tech against. I think Naru is pretty bad. I actually think in Naru you probably can't play the damage deny game plan, but because Naru is such a mediocre clan to begin with right now, you can just play the game plan of kill them first, even without your ritual stuff. So yeah, so I think Luard has enough answers to its quote-unquote bad matchups when you play like a very low damage control kind of play style. I also just call it 0 damage, even though it's not 0 damage anymore. Like even against its not so good matchups, it can still win. And then against the decks that can't reliably deal with it, I think the biggest thing is that Luard playing damage stall has a really strong matchup against Neo Nectar, because the deck just kind of can't kill you. Like the Neo Nectar, they need to. Because Neo Nectar's gameplay right now is they push you to 5 and then they Primavera you for like 3 PG checks. So, and if they never can push you to 5 because of your giant intercepts and you drawing all your PG and stuff like that, the matchup is kind of very hard. And obviously, if they try Jingle Thuria, you can just Augma them for their hand instead. So yeah, many things that make this deck have a good matchup against Asha. So because of that, I think this deck is very good. I think this deck's one like relatively really bad matchup is Altmile, just because Altmile can play with very low CB and still rally your face in really easily. So yeah, so Luard I definitely think belongs up here after seeing what the deck can do with its damage deny game plan. So yeah, so Luard I think belongs into top 3 and is a new addition to S tier. And the one deck that I want to talk about that everybody is, for lack of better terms, dick riding is Prisms. So placement wise, I don't think I'll move it because I do think Prisms is worse than Blade Master, but better than all this stuff here. But Prisms had a quite the horrendous showing at CS. So to put it into perspective, the one game they won on stream was against Genesis. And the way that deck with Prisms won was because the Prism player healed 4 times. Alright, so winning because you healed 4 times had absolutely nothing to do with how good the deck actually is. And then after that, ignoring all the mirrors that were played, because if you watch CS, you'll know there were many Neo Nectars and Prisms on stream. So ignoring all the mirrors, Prisms had a 0% win rate against everything that wasn't on a mirror. The deck gets rolled by like Asha every single match that played on stream, and there were quite a bit of those. I think it played into Altmile once, it got rolled. I think it played into Luard once, it got rolled. And I think those were the only things on stream that showed. So the deck quite literally has a 0% win rate against actual good decks. Because Fenrir, I'm begrudgingly putting here. I honestly don't think Fenrir is that particularly good. But again, had a showing. The deck has a gimmick to it. But yeah, so yeah, Prisms had quite the horrendous showing. I genuinely do not know what JP players see in this deck. I think for the most part, we're the Western community, right? The English-speaking people. I'm bad at geography. We're the Eastern people. Yeah. So us, I think for the most part, the majority of the Eastern, like the English-speaking community, does not have a very high opinion of this deck. I think for the most part, most of us think that this deck is like a very solid tier 2 contender, and I think that's perfectly fair. I think it's perfectly where the deck belongs. But if you check game width, they have it as the best deck, assuming their Luster stuff is ordered. I know for a fact all the top JP players think very highly of this deck, thinking that it is a better combo deck than Altmile, considering they brought it over Altmile. And yeah, please enlighten me as to why this deck is supposedly the S tier threat that it is, or the top tier 1 threat that it is, when the deck had a 0% win rate against everything that it was in a mirror. So yeah, just from how the deck performed, I don't think its combo is particularly good either. It's like you can go like rear and then van rear, and then you like reset a bunch of stuff. Like cool combo deck. You can murk people at 5, but like that's a lot of decks at this point. If you're at 5, you're probably dead to most decks to begin with. Prisms aren't doing particularly anything special. And I just think that like there's no reason to play Prism when Altmile is right there as the better combo deck, in my opinion at least. If you played both, cool, because in a pick 3 ban 1, because cool, you have two combo decks, one being really good, one being slightly worse, but still okay. But yeah, most people, I decided to bring like the competent lineups that I personally think people brought were like Asha, Altmile, and then Prisms. So this was mainly like Nidame and Silk. I think those are 2 players I actually do respect, and those are lineups they brought. I personally think again that Altmile is better Prisms. So clearly they see something in this deck that I don't. So yeah, so please enlighten me as to why this deck is S tier. I've seen many people in my comments tell me that Prisms belong in S tier, and this CS definitely does not help their point at all whatsoever. Like yes, like please, with actual facts other than just Prism's good deck herder combos, like please enlighten me to why this deck is good. So yeah, so that's it for this month's tier list. Heavily influenced by CS results, I'd say, for the most part. Obviously still on my own opinions, because if CS results and rep rates mattered, this deck would be here, and this deck is obviously not here. So yeah, so that's it for this month's tier list. Tell me what you guys think about the tier list down below in the comments. And again, please enlighten me as to why Prisms are this tier 1 threat that I should be scared of. And yeah, I guess that's it for this video. See you guys next time. Peace out.